Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, MyFM 101.3. I'm your host, John Drowan from Main Effort Financial, and I'm joined by my dear partner, Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group. We are also joined by Christian Bidet, who leads the Cavalry, located over at the Holliston Cable Access TV. And we are, of course, on MyFM 101.3, you know, the greatest radio station ever in the history of ever.
Yeah.
And we're Money in the Law.
History of radio waves.
And we are Money in the Law. We are here to talk about everything money, everything law. If it's your first time joining us, buckle in because you're going to learn something as you do every week. And
coming at you.
And with luck, with some good fortune, you might be entertained as well because that's why we get paid the big bucks.
You're going to learn something. The entertainment, that's free. We don't even charge you for that. That's
right.
extra. It's a little extra.
Yep.
That's how we roll.
The comedy's for
That's
free.
right. That's right. That's right.
And we try and we don't kid ourselves. We know for a fact that we're funny. I've always told anytime I meet somebody, right, who is a fan of the show, I'll always try and get out of them. I'm like, so between you and me,
pick one.
Who do you think's funny?
That's right.
Who's your favorite? Who do you think's funny?
Who's your favorite?
And then of course I answer for them. I'm like, you know what? Don't answer that. I know you and I both know.
You don't have to say it.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it awkward for you.
I
don't make it awkward for you.
I know it's me. Awkward for Jay.
I know it's me. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Your secret's safe with me.
All the time. Who's your favorite on the show?
Attorney-client, we keep it right here.
Right.
And then I get right here.
Right. Because I'm a fiduciary, I can't reveal.
That's right.
And and we get the secret handshake, the double wink.
Nice.
And we're off and running.
That's good stuff. That is good stuff. Good stuff.
That is good stuff. It is. I mean, it is true. Like over the years, I have been surprised, and we've reviewed these a couple times. But there have been some very surprising moments where I'm more surprised than anybody. I'm like, what? You've listened to our show?
Wait, what?
What are you talking about? Right?
Yep. That's right.
You've seen our show on TV? Yeah.
Very funny. I have to give a shout out this morning.
Yes, I love shout outs.
So my wonderful in-laws, who shall go unnamed because I know they like to stay.
Because you can't figure that out, but okay.
No, they like to stay under the radar.
Yep.
My mother-in-law more than my father-in-law, but he's a little more out there. He's a little person. He's Mr. Personality. You know him. They were down the Cape last weekend for Labor Day weekend, and they said to us every week at right before the show starts, they literally, like old school, sit down.
Stop it.
Get the radio all lined up. They have their breakfast, and they start their day with, wait for it, Money in the Law.
Every Saturday.
So Bobby and Connie, thank you so much. We appreciate you listening.
Those are names that were made up.
That's right. That's right. So we appreciate that. And so they were talking about it last week. They were like, we love listening to it. It's great. We really appreciate it. They said some of our friends listen to it as well. They love the show as well. So I didn't tell them I was doing this, but this is a shout out to them.
That is fantastic, and I'm echoing that shout out, right?
This guy couldn't ask for better in-laws.
You couldn't ask for better, right?
I love him to death. I love him to death.
And their daughter, your wife, arguably one of the most wonderful people that has walked the face of this earth, right?
That's right.
So you know what? The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That's the way I see it.
They got a great team over there. We had a lovely, lovely, lovely weekend. A lot of laughs, a lot of memories made that I will never remember, and
So I have a statement. I have a kind of a private statement to send to you right now. Listen, if you ever have any trouble with your son-in-law, listen, he's a good guy. This is just between us. If you ever have any trouble,
pull the radio up really close.
Yep, you can call me. You can call me because he and I, we've known each other for a long time. I'll be able, if you need me to kind of steer him in the right direction, talk to me first.
There you go.
I'm here.
There you go. Yeah. So shout out to them. Shout out to them.
That's good stuff.
That's it. Good
stuff.
You
know what? See, there's fans. There's people. There's some very loyal fans. Like we have. You know what we have? We have a base.
We have a base. We might have to come up with a name for them. You know how everybody's got names for their base, right? We might have to come up with a name for them. If you think of a name that you'd like to be called, other than some of the things that I've been called, send an email to the show. Let us know. We'll figure out what a name for the base is going to look like.
Go to the base, and of course, those will be the next T-shirts that we make.
That's right. That's right. Next round of swag. That's what it'll be.
I mean, before the end of the show, I'm going to have a name for the base.
All right.
I'm going to write it down.
Right. Write it down. Why don't we talk about it? We'll talk about it.
Yeah,
we'll introduce it. We'll do a big drum roll.
Okay. We're not going to pick it today, right?
Yep, that's right.
We have to include Christian's got to have some. I mean, Christian's got to have some followers as well, right? I'm sure that
on
he's
the Insta. The kids are on the Insta, right? Is that what they're all doing right there?
On the Twitter.
Yep. on the interweb, as we like to say to the kids.
Christian probably does. He probably does Money in the Law TikToks behind our back, and we don't even know.
That's
No,
right.
we
That's
don't
right.
know.
He's built this whole like overseas following that we have no idea on some double secret
Scandinavia
platform.
and the subcontinent.
That's right. That's right. That's right. The great line. If you know where that came from, let us know.
If you know where that came from, then that's 10,000 movie points. That
That's
you're gonna
right,
get, right
10,000
into
movie
added
points.
to your account.
Oh my God.
All right, so
What's on your mind?
well, the weather is good. You know, we talk about
we
the
always-
weather. You know, and we don't need to
weather-
spend a lot of time on it. It's weather time. It's
September. It's September in New
beautiful.
England. A greater, there are greater months, but it's a beautiful month, and it's different though. Kids are all back to school. You're driving around. There's some sullen-looking faces, but some backpacks standing by the road, and they're some of them are psyched to be back, but it's still back to it. I mean, it's exciting for about
It is
a
back
day.
to school, and today's Saturday. Right? So we, as you all know, we record on Wednesday, but it airs on Saturday. And of course, today, I mean, this Saturday, today is the 20th anniversary of September 11th.
Yes, it is. That's
So
right.
so that is of course, everybody, we're all going to be remembering that, and just how, kind of how, when you sit back and really try and take it all in, of how everybody's lives have changed from that moment, from that day to now. And and it's in many ways it feels like it's a long time ago. It feels like it's a lifetime ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then in many ways it's like it happened not that yesterday or last weekend.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it happened not unlike everybody back in the day remember where they were when JFK got shot. Like everybody remembers where they were when they heard about the planes hitting the Twin Towers. So.
Yeah. There'll be day of remembrance. There'll be some somber celebrations for all the right reasons. And
Right. There'll be and as we talked about when we were doing our prep for the show yesterday, there'll be some people that will be remembered from September 11th. There was some truly heroic actions that people to be remembered from September 11th. And maybe they'll be interviewed, but some of them may not be interviewed where they should be, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some mayors. I'm not going to throw out any names.
No. We talked. Yeah, but that's right. That's right. Yeah. There'll be some people who you would expect to be present for some of those services, if you will, who will not be present for some of the services, who may have been in previous years, but may not necessarily be involved for a whole host of reasons.
And it's funny, like if you're not in the greater New York area, or you don't frequent going to New York. This summer I spent some time down in New York, in Manhattan, and you're just like, you just can't. It's every time I go there, and you start thinking about September 11th, it's hard to truly get your head around what that must have been like that day, and how.
No, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. Nope, I can't even imagine what that would have been like, and. No.
So that's today, and of course, life changed forever after that. So
So our thoughts and prayers go out to everybody affected
Everybody,
on a day like today, and some remembrances, and reflect and think about it.
All right. So what do you want to talk about today?
I got an email from somebody who had some questions about a certain thing that they had done that they wanted to talk about. Did you have something in particular that you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about tailgating for toys, but we can table that till the end of the show.
I love the idea. No, actually, we at the office, we had somebody who called us with a particular situation, and they wanted to ask if we could sort of explain what they had done. And so when we discussed what they had done,
Wait, what you guys
No,
did
we
for
didn't
them?
do it. No, they did it. No.
What have we done?
That's exactly right. This happens all the time. In law firms, this happens all the time. Hi, how are you? I just want to come in and tell you what I did.
Yeah.
And then they lay it on the table, and then they go, and I don't know if we did it right.
Is this going to be a problem?
Is it? Yeah. How do I undo this? Right. We hear this a lot, and we recommend this to people in certain situations, but there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. And so what had happened was somebody had come in with us. I'll give you a brief title for it, and then we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and we'll really dive into it.
Tease me right now.
Somebody had come in, they had signed a deed, and they had transferred some property to one of their kids. And they were asking if they had made a good decision or a bad decision, and how do we fix the decision?
How do I unring this bell?
That's right. That's what they asked about. That was the question. The answer, when we come back after this break, to talk about whether or not putting your kids on your deed is a good idea or a bad idea, and how you would do it and how you definitely would not do it.
I paid for my whole seat, but I only need
You need the edge.
All right, we'll be right back on Money in the Law, my FM 101.3, Holliston Cable Access TV. Don't go anywhere. Saturday morning,
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
And we're back. Money in the Law, my FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Effort Financial. Christian at the helm. steering us through the cosmos here, making it happen as we take another crazy trip around the sun, to quote the great Kenny Chesney. So right before the break, I was mentioning that somebody had called into the show and said, hey, I put my kid on my deed. I get 3 kids. I put my kid on my deed. Good, bad, not sure, but what's up? And I said, well, let's talk about that. So adding your kids to your deed, we do this.
This is for your house.
This is for your house. Piece of property you own, right?
Yeah.
Let's just pick, we'll call it your house. We'll call it your primary residence, right? We get this request all the time. Oh, we have these conversations with people all the time. Why would you do this? Why, pray tell, would you put your kids on your deed? By the way, we're assuming that they're all over 18. They're all adults, right? That's the question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Why would I put my kid on the deed? Because because I want that child to inherit the house. How about that?
Correct. That's right. So that's exactly what's going to happen, right? So when you
Whether you wanted it to happen or not.
whether you realize what you wanted to happen, but when you put something, if you have a couple of kids, doesn't matter the number, right? 2, 4, 10, 12, doesn't matter, and you want a particular asset like real estate, right? You want that asset to go to your kids. You can do it a couple of different ways. You can do it through a will, you can do it through a trust, or you can do what this individual did. You can just sign a deed that says, I, Mom, give the house to you kids.
Jay.
Right? To Jay. That's fine. You like that, right? So if you do that, which is great, there are reasons that you would do it. One of them is the one that you just mentioned, which is, I want this piece of property to go to these kids. They're going to get it anyway. I want them to get it. I'm never leaving the house, right? I'm going to be here till, we always tell people, are you going to be there till I carry you out feet first? And they go, yes, I am, right? Then that's an option. Now, when you do that, when you put those kids on your deed, they own the property. You've signed it. People always bring this up. I think they love the name. I signed a quit claim deed. That's what they signed, right?
Quit it.
So
quit it.
You have signed a deed,
I quit.
given all the rights in the property to the kids, right? Now, once you do that, depending on the circumstances, you've given the house to the kids. You're potentially out of luck if the kids decide, hey, Ma, we want you out. You've been a little bit difficult to deal with these days, and so we don't want to deal with you. We want to sell the house, and you're out.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's the true ownership, right? That's the ownership of property, and it's not right. It's not unlike if I put the house into a trust, right? If the house becomes if I put the house in a trust, then essentially the trust becomes the owner of that property.
That's right.
It's the same thing. So once you relinquish ownership of the property, now some people put their house into a revocable trust where they are the trustees, right?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing, right? Once I sign over the deed, if I sign my house over to you, then guess what?
Well, if you sign your house over to me and I say, John, don't worry about it. You can stay here. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Everything's fine. That's a promise, right? That's a promise. That's a handshake. That's a pinky
there's
promise.
nothing written. Yeah.
Nothing done. Nothing written down. So in this case here, this person had done that. They have a couple of kids and they had transferred their property to one kid.
So that's an issue in itself, right? Well, we're going to get to that one.
Yeah,
right?
so that's the issue. So and people will do that. We've seen people do that in the past where they say, well, I'm going to give my property to my one kid and he's going to do the right thing or she's going to do the right thing. The other kids might have some challenges. There's a reason we don't want them on the deed. That's fine. It's a challenge. It's a risk, right? Yeah. In this particular situation, a couple of things that came to mind that we highlighted for the client. Number one, what we would have liked to have seen you do is rather than just sign the property over to your kid, right, in the hope that they don't put you on the curb, is we would have liked to have seen you reserve what's called a life estate in your property, which means you get to stay there for the rest of your life. They can't kick you out.
So that's part of the deal, right? That's
part of the deal.
That's one of those, like when you're signing a contract, that's one of those paragraphs you need in that contract. Like, yeah, here we go, the life estate. So then you say, look, you can have the property, but guess what? I'm never leaving. Like you said, I'm coming out feet first.
You get the property and you get me, right? And you get me as long as I'm taking a breath.
It's a package deal.
Right? It's an absolute package deal.
I can't wait to do that to my kids.
And so again, to your point, I'm not thrilled about the deed going to just one person, but that's okay because if we were representing the client, we'd say, well, let's at least make sure that you can stay there and that that's the plan, right? And they would say, sure, great, that's the plan. So wonderful, you can stay. Part two of that project is, now, why would we just give that property to one kid? There may be reasons, right? And if the reasons are, well, he or she will do the right thing when the time comes, we look at everybody and go, you understand that's a problem. Like, you understand you're putting all your faith that they're going to do the right thing. He has a battle with his siblings, crosswords, call it what you want. If they have issues, he's in charge. He's in the catbird seat. If he decides not to write a check to his siblings down the road, that's a real possibility. Now, what does everybody say when we say that? That would never happen.
Yeah.
That's never
What
going
could
to
go
happen.
wrong?
I didn't raise savages. This is not what's going to happen.
But
it could.
But it's one of those things where it's almost like you're asking for trouble.
Yes.
Because it almost puts and again, every situation's different and it depends how old people are. But like, you can't make it up, right?
That's right.
Like and what the first thing that comes to mind, and again, when it's done with good intention, right? And the idea is, like, you're right. Like, let's say if I'm the one who's on the deed for my mother's property, then I truly believe, and my siblings truly believe, that I'm going to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
But what the first thing that comes to mind is that it's not when something's my property and I'm married, it's not just mine. No, it belongs to my wife. And unless there's any kind of a stipulation or there's any kind of legal documentation or there's trust or anything, then guess what? That everything's on the. If we split up, everything's on the table.
Well, to your point, the reason we write these things down is so we know what's supposed to happen if some of these things that you're talking about, if they happen.
Yeah.
You get married, you're married and you get a house, mom says, here's the house, and then you get divorced. That soon-to-be ex is saying, well, look, John's got this interest in this house that his mother gave him, and that means that half of that's coming to me because we're getting divorced. And then the answer is, well, no, but I promised my mom that I would do this.
Yeah.
That's your mom's, that's a promise between you and your mother. That's got nothing to do with me, right?
Yeah.
You get a house, we're getting divorced, I want half, right? And let's all agree, the reason you're getting divorced is probably because you're not getting along.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't care anymore.
Yeah.
She doesn't care what kind of promises. Sometimes they do. It happens, right? Sometimes couples work it out amicably and they go, look, I'm not coming after that. But a lot of times their attorney is going to say, you're entitled to that.
Yeah.
Why aren't you going after it?
Or they may not have a choice, right? They may look, I need someplace to live. Like, maybe they're living in the house, and I need someplace to live. Yeah, you got to buy you got to sell this thing, right?
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't want. Now, so what about? And then the other side, the other thing we think about too is, let's say that you don't get divorced, and let's say that things go, and mom's intent was for you guys to use this property for as long as you want and enjoy it, and everybody gets together, and you have Thanksgiving and you have 4th of July there every single year, and that's great. And then then mom passes away, and and she's looking down at everybody and saying, oh, this is just how I want it to happen. And then when you get to when we start hitting the twilight of our years, and it's like, well, okay, great, now. What happens if I die?
Yep.
What happens? What's my estate plan? And what happens if I? Guess what? If this is my property, guess who gets it? Not, unless I've specified in a will or in a trust that my siblings who are my age or close to my age. So if I'm 80, then they're close to 82.
Sure.
No, they're not 82 because I'm older than them. But anyway, that's a difference. So, but yeah, so now who's going to get it? It's going to be my kids. It's going to be my estate. It's going to go to my estate.
Well, it's going to be either your wife,
yeah,
or it's going to be, because now you're divorced. So now
we didn't get divorced. We worked it out.
All right. So
but now it's like, but it's still mine, right? The property still belongs to me.
But even if you don't work it out, you get divorced, then you get remarried, right? Now something happens to you. You've been hanging onto this piece of property, promising your siblings, look, guys, it's in my name. It doesn't matter. Come down, park all over the place. I don't care. It's not a big deal. Eventually,
it's all of ours. It's all of ours. Yeah, we all share it.
It doesn't matter. Just on paper, we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. You're not around anymore. Your new wife, who's 30 years younger than you, gets a house and doesn't care about your siblings, because she probably doesn't even like your siblings, because they're 80 and she's 50 and they don't like her for all the obvious reasons, right? So that's all. So now she gets the house, and then do your kids get it? No.
Nope.
Because guess what? Because they're not in the line of fire. No, she gets it, and then she gets married to somebody who's 30 years younger than her.
Yeah.
So now some 20-year-old person that you don't even know, that you've never met, that your in-laws don't know, that
your
your
kids are
family
20
doesn't
years
know.
older than.
That's right. That's right. So guess what?
It's a sitcom.
That's right. Now it becomes like the MTV house, right? And it's like, how did that happen? The old guy John owned that like a month ago, and now these guys own it.
Right.
And I know it sounds crazy, but this stuff happens, right? So when you're doing this idea of a deed with the life estate, or deed to somebody, remember, you're giving up your right to an ownership interest in a piece of property unless you reserve some rights to yourself, like, I get to live here for the rest of my life. Now, you brought it up earlier. Is there a better way to do something like this? There is, right?
Yeah, there's a much cleaner way to do
Well,
it, right?
one better way is to put the house in everybody's name, first of all. Now, that can have pros and cons. The con to something like that is if they don't get along, there's some infighting. And it's bad enough when you inherit property with somebody else, but if you get stuck owning it with somebody else that you don't get along, that can be a mess.
Well,
right?
that's a common issue, right?
Yes.
So in most circumstances, if people have more than one child, they're going and their oftentimes their biggest asset is their property, their real estate. They're going to leave that to all the kids.
That's right.
Because for just what we talked about before, if you leave it to one, then you're opening up a whole Pandora's box to have all kinds of problems down the road. So the easiest and kind of most fairest way to do it is to leave it to everybody, and you can do that via trust. You can just put everybody on the deed, but you can if you have 3 siblings and all 3 of you, or if you have 4, all 4 of you own equal interest in said property.
And then to your point, and then everybody has an equal interest in said property. So then you just have to, now, good or bad, you have to come to an agreement that says, well, we're selling the property.
Yeah, or we're not, right? So that becomes the, and we've talked about this many times on the show. That's the issue. If you own $1 million house that's on Cape Cod, and 2 people, or say there's 4 of you, like 3 of you use it, and 1 of you lives in California and doesn't use it, and then but you're hitting them up for the annual real estate tax and for all the other upkeep and stuff in the house, and like, I never go there,
right.
and my kids never go there.
Right.
So why am I? Why do I still need to be part of it? Not that I don't love you guys or anything, but it's just it doesn't.
I don't use it. I'm on the West Coast.
Doesn't help me.
We don't have the same connection as you guys. We'd like to get bought out.
It doesn't.
Right?
Yeah.
What do we want to do?
And we're okay with that. We're okay with being bought out. We're okay with kind of not having interest in this property. And who knows? Maybe the value is going to quadruple over the years. It's time for us to go.
We'll take the risk.
Yeah,
we'll take the risk. Yep. And that's one way to do it. One way to say, look, you know what? We all got the property. We all don't want to be involved in the property, and it's amicable, and we can just come up with a number, and there's not a lot of pushing and shoving, and they just come up with a number. You get a mortgage, you buy
But what
them out,
usually
you're
happens, though, right? But then what happens is, like, oftentimes they can't afford it, right? If it's
That's right.
You can't. We can't afford to come up with $250,000.
Yeah, I love having $1 million property, but I can't come up with another, $400,000 to buy our sibling out.
Right.
And so now what do we do, right? Now are we going to sell the property? Are we going to all agree to carry it? Are we going to, this is where it can get a little sticky because everybody doesn't share the same affinity for the house as everybody thought they did. So the other option might be to say, look, you know what we'll do? We'll put the property into a trust. You mentioned it earlier today, and have somebody in charge, maybe a couple people in charge. It doesn't have to just be one person.
Put Christian in charge.
But again, you run into kind of the same issues. All putting it in the trust does is give one person the control over what's going to happen with the property, but they're probably going to be asking the same exact questions, right? They're going to say, look, if you guys, are we going to keep the property? No. Same person on the West Coast says, look, trust, no trust on the property, not on the property. I really don't have any interest, and I'd rather get a buyout.
Yeah, it'd be great if I'd love $250,000 bucks, because
Yep.
you know what, that would really help right now.
Yep.
That would make me happy.
Yep. And I'm not, I'll do something out here. I'm in California. We already are on the coast now. I don't need another place, the coast. I can do my own thing. That's fine. So yeah, money would help, and I'd prefer the money. So the players have to agree with that. That's potentially a better option to handle a piece of real estate like this and to figure out whether or not that's the way you want to go. Remember, the deed with the life estate, it's the easier way to transfer property, but everybody gets stuck owning the property, and that may not be what you want. What we always find is, especially if there's a couple of people involved, somebody always wants to play HGTV. Somebody always comes in and goes, the property's in Natick. You know what property's like.
You know the deal.
Right? I mean, it's so obvious what's going on, right? Like unless you're in the business, you're like, property, right? It's crazy.
Obviously, somebody's a real estate agent, so you got that.
But then there's this real approach that says, hey, if we put a coat of paint on this thing, we're going to get $3,000, $300,000 more than what we're going to get for it right now. Somebody always wants to do that, and the other siblings like, look, I don't want to do that. I have time for that.
Yeah.
I'm not a developer. I don't have the money to put up to do that, to maybe make it on the back end. I just want to sell the property. I'd really just want to just take the money and run.
And again, you know, we're about to head into break, but before we do, these are like, if you know, in our example, if your biggest problem in life is that you and your siblings inherited $1 million house on the beach, right? So that's your biggest problem. Again, it's like, okay, the worst thing that can happen here, or one of the options is that you just sell it. Right? You're like, okay, you guys can't agree. 2 people want to keep it, 2 people want to sell it. 2 people can't afford to buy them out, or maybe they can, or whatever. But you just sell the property, put it on the market, and like you said, maybe we'll paint it, we'll redo the driveway, we'll put some bushes in them, do some landscaping, get as much as we can for the property, and then we sell. And is that going to cause some bad blood to between the siblings? Maybe, right? Arguably, somebody
like everything we've said on the show. If you don't talk about it ahead of time, it's potentially going to cause some problems. You got to sit around and do exactly what you just said. Look, there's 3 of us that might get this property. One of us, for no particular reason, just might not be able, has no interest. Forget the could, forget the would. It just doesn't fit into their lifestyle. They just don't want it. I just don't like the beach. Okay, great. I just don't want to be part of it.
I don't care about it, right?
That's right. I don't really care about it. And then you're left with the, well, now we can't be in the property. Well, then to your point, then you got to make a decision.
Yeah,
right?
And then it's like, look, if you really want this property, and you want to keep it, right? Like there's one sibling that's like, I love it so much. Oh my God, I can't believe you're taking this away from me. It's like we grew up here, blah blah blah, and they're like complaining, and then they're like, look, I get it. It's an expensive property. Figure it out. Like if you want to buy us out, then buy us out, and maybe you could even cut a deal. Like maybe you could even do some kind of private financing where like they don't, but then that's a whole nother.
It's a whole nother animal. Whole nother show.
That's a whole nother animal where you're like, all right, well, and we always say that, like if you're doing some kind of deal amongst family, we always tell our clients, be prepared for this thing to blow up and you to lose your money. Like that could potentially happen because at the expense of losing your family or losing your money.
Yeah.
Money usually takes the money usually takes the high road in that one.
Yeah.
So the idea of, if you want to do this, because we've all decided, and again, it's our first world problem. Like you have the opportunity to buy at cost $1 million property, and maybe you can afford it and maybe you can't. And if you can't afford it, then you just can't afford it, right?
That's right.
And
you can't expect your siblings to carry you. If you can't afford it and they don't want it, they have no interest in it for any number of reasons.
And that's what happens, right?
Yes.
That's what happens many, many times in these situations. You're like, and somebody may even be living there, right?
Yeah.
Somebody may be occupying and living in the house, and you're like, okay, so now we're essentially carrying you. You live here. Oh, but I do all the work. I do all the upkeep. I cut the grass. I make sure that the electrical bill gets paid and all that stuff.
It's never as much as you think it is.
But at the end of the day, you're carrying them in your parents' house, and now you have to. You make the conscious decision that it's going to cost me to pay for my brother or my sister to continue to stay in this house. Or we'll go. Let's take a break. We'll take a break. We'll keep it rolling. We'll be right back on Money in the Law. Don't go anywhere. It's Saturday morning. It's probably nice. It's usually nice.
Is.
It's usually nice.
September Saturday.
It's always nice between 9 and 10 on Saturday morning. That's kind of the way.
Always great.
It's kind of the way it works out. All right. We'll be right back.
And we're back. Money in the Law, MyFM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main Everett Financial. We're talking about giving away some property and the good ways to do it and the bad ways to do it.
So tell us what happened in this store. So we were doing you have your case study here. So what was your
what are the options?
Well,
so this is what
how'd you guys approach this?
Yeah, this is
what
how
do we do at the law firm? At the firm.
Yeah, so at the firm we would say to our client, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to approach the child that you put on the property, and we're going to basically say to them, hey, look, mom did this. Upon further review, we went to the replay. We think there's a better way to handle this.
We went to the booth, right?
That's right. We went to the booth. I go I put my head under the thing. I look at everything. I look at it. I come back. And then somebody's going, we're waiting for the decision. It looks like he's coming to the middle of the field. He's turning on his microphone. And the decision is, it's a do-over. It's a do-over, right?
He's out of there.
So that's what we did. We go to the client's child and we say, hey, look, mom's doing some planning. She did some planning. You're probably hip to it. Maybe you're not. But if you weren't, This is what was done.
Good news and bad news.
And we think that's right. Good news, you have a house. Good news and bad news, we're trying to get it back.
The lawyer's going to tell you to tell your
right.
mother to undo this.
That was the suggestion. The suggestion was, let's go talk to the son. Let's tell him that we think that the house was probably handled, the transfer to him, while the intention was the right intention. We think there's a better way that this should have been done to avoid any potential issues down the road.
But remember, this is one of those things where like it's done, right?
It
right?
is done.
So it's done. So the reason that you're actually approaching said sibling is because they own the property now.
That's
and you're
right.
like, hey, property owner, would you be willing to give up the house that was just deeded over to you? And they're going to be like, this is a very interesting situation.
Actually, they're going to say one of two things. They're going to say, absolutely no problem, whatever mom wants, I don't care.
Let me talk to my lawyer.
That's the thing that always comes up.
I got a lawyer too.
You got a lawyer, I got a lawyer, right? So that's a potential option, right? They go back and they say, well, let's understand what you're giving up. And they, depending on the relationship, they might even say, sure, I'll do it for a little bit of this.
Yeah.
Right?
For a little bit of cheddar.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's potentially, by the way, you run in the radio world, this is me rubbing my fingers together.
I was going to say,
I'll do it for some money. I'll do it for
it.
some money. And again, we always want to think that every scenario is the Brady Bunch-esque scenario. And in a lot of cases, it's not. And you mentioned the reason right there. One of the reasons that in this scenario where we worry is that the person who we're asking to unring the bell comes back and says, yeah, but I've been doing, to your point, I've been taking care of the house. I've been taking care of mom. I've been taking care of the lawn.
Maybe
I've been
I
all this
live
other
there.
stuff. And that's been, and
Maybe I live there.
That's right. And that's the counterploy, right? The counter response to that is, I know that you've been doing that stuff, but you've also been living there rent free or at a relatively reduced rent compared to what you should have paid. So everyone's where they should be, right? You got rent, she got help, she gets some help at the house. You did, I mean, there's
Everybody
a whole
wins.
bunch of reasons to say everybody's kind of square. And then we try to go back and do it. And with the intention of coming back and saying, and by the way, if we have any hint that there's going to be a problem getting this thing back, the next response is not going to be, and then let's go back and let's put everybody back on it again. The answer at that point is a trust is probably the way to go here, because then we have a little bit more control. So if the child that we thought was going to be completely on board decides that they're not completely on board, or they make it difficult to get them on board, that's just a look into the future to get a sense of where this thing is going to go when
It'll get better.
things get messy.
Things usually get better.
Yeah.
So here's my question. So my question is, in this case, and this is a legitimate question of, so so let's say my mother puts me on the deed of her $1 million house. Not like my mother has $1 million, but I'm saying if she did, she puts me on the deed of the $1 million. So now I am essentially the co-owner of said $1 million house.
Well, if she gives the house to you and puts you on the deed and doesn't reserve a life estate, you own it.
So now it's my house.
Your house.
So as part of my estate, right? So what? Yeah. And there's a gifting issue with that, right? So if she puts me on the deed, then essentially she's gifted me that house, correct?
Yep.
So now this brings up the, if I need to undo that, right? If I need to give that back, or if I need to give it to a trust, or so then doesn't that trigger a gifting issue on my part?
I
right?
gave you $1 million, you gave me $1 million. Yeah, right. That's right. Especially if the transaction's kind of contemporaneous, and you say, well, look, I just did this a week ago. Maybe
you may be able to do
you'll
it.
let your CPA kind of say, yeah, we unrung the bell, and that's not a big deal. But if there's been a little bit of time since that transfer, a year or so, something
let's say
like
it's
that,
a year, right?
Yeah, it creates the need to do the same thing that mom should have done, which in this world right now is fill out a gift tax return, don't pay any gift taxes, and then they just put it in the big file in the sky until at some point down the road that bill comes due. There'll be no taxes paid, but it's a little bit more work. And again, you get somebody who goes, well, look, I got to get a CPA involved now. I didn't have to do CPA before. I did all my own returns. Now I got to
cost.
So it can, depending on the willingness of people to play ball, it could be a real problem. And again, it's a hope. It's a hope that we can do this in reverse.
Yeah.
And I know you have said before, hope not a great plan.
Can't do it.
And it could become a real problem. So that's the idea. So the idea is, if you're going to put people on property, you want to think it through. You want to make sure that the people that you're putting on the property are people that you'd actually want to own property with. It's not everybody feels that way. And then down the road, you really have to be very honest with yourself about the dynamics. Now, look, we talk about these types of scenarios because they're the ones that grab everybody's attention. There are many, 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 many situations, and we see them all the time, where nothing happens, right?
Yep.
The son turns around and goes, oh, I didn't realize that was a mistake. I'll come by the office next week. I'll sign the deed. Ma, what do you want to do to fix it up and make it work the right way? Let's
Hey,
do
Ma.
this, this, and this, right? Piece of cake. Ma, the meatloaf. Ma, the meatloaf. Ma, the meatloaf, right?
You're burning the chicken. Come on.
So that there's plenty of situations where it works and everybody's on board and there are no issues. And you don't hear about those because they're boring and nobody wants to talk about that. You know what I mean?
Nobody loves boring more than me.
Nope.
I love it.
We
Yeah.
love boring.
Love it.
But nobody loves a story at the barbecue that goes like this. So how'd it go? Oh, everything went fine.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
No
they
fighting?
undid it.
No,
And
they-
they put everything into a trust and they were psyched about it.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. And
everybody signed
everybody
it.
lived happily ever after,
Yeah,
right?
everybody
Nobody likes
signed
that,
it.
right? You know, we're not 3 years old anymore. Nobody
Mom's
likes that.
117 years old, right? She's still there.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Everybody's happy, right? No.
This is
People
great.
want the other story. It's more exciting. It's more interesting. But it happens. It happens all the time. So you really need to sort of think these through and have a discussion with somebody who does this for a living. You know, don't. And the reason I say this is because people do this deed thing themselves all the time because they think it's pretty straightforward.
Well,
right?
right. Well, think about it, right? What's another common scenario where you say, okay, well, look, I have this much money in my bank account, and I have my house, right?
Yep.
So people say, okay, look, Jay, you live in the house. You've lived with me for 10 years. You've paid me some rent. So you know what? I'm going to put you on the house because I want you to inherit that house.
Yep.
And this is just kind of part of like your normal estate planning. And then my other two children, you guys are going to have my money, right? You're going to have my money. So and then we've talked on the show many times about how that situation could not work out the way you intended it, right? Because
Yeah.
you do this, and let's say you did this, and in the year 2000, 21 years ago, and guess what? That house, that Natick, that Natick, 3-family house that
Buck
you've been living
85
in,
and-
yeah,
yep.
that you paid, and maybe you refinanced it 11 times, and you're $100,000 in your bank account, which seemed about the same,
Seemed
right?
close.
Seemed
Seemed
about
close.
the same. Things are different now because guess what? I never invested that money. I just kept it in CDs.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, my house, just because it was in Natick and I never did anything to it other than maybe change the boiler, is now worth $850,000.
That's right. That's right.
And oh, by the way, hey, he's on the deed, and I love all my children the same, and I want all my. But guess what? The other two are not part of that.
Right.
They don't own that house where my one son or my one daughter does.
Right. Now, the other thing that will come up is somebody will say, look, we're going to sell. What if we sell the house down the road? Right? So if you sell the house down the road, who's ever on the deed gets money. Right? So
It's the money.
Right? So if you think that you're going to need the money that real estate would turn into if you sold it, and you start putting all your kids on the deed, when those checks get cut, they're going to get cut to the owners of the property. Mom, if you have a life estate, you're going to get a check. The kids are going to get money because they're on the deed. If you didn't reserve a life estate, you're not getting a check. The kids are getting a check. Now, what are the kids going to do with the check? Hopefully, again, same thing, all the right things.
Yeah.
But if they choose not to, that money is in the wind.
Yeah.
And the money that you thought, well, I'll always have my house to fall back on, is not there to fall back on.
Well, that's a precarious situation anyway, right? If mom has a life estate and oh, by the way, we're going to sell the house, the first thing you have to figure out is where's mom going to live?
Oh, yeah.
Because mom's not the life estate goes once that goes away once the house gets sold.
That's right. Yeah, she's not going. She doesn't come with the house
right.
for the new owners.
That's right.
Because they're going to want to make sure
She's
that
not-
mom
she's
signs
not the
off on
built-in-
getting out of the house.
Right. She's not the built-in island in the kitchen. She's not the built-in china cabinet in the dining room.
Included gas grill, tools in the shed, 76-year-old
My mother.
woman. That's all part of the deal,
That's all
right?
part of it. Wonderful cook, makes a great meatloaf.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right. Can't stay up as late as she used to, but that's okay. That's a win sometimes, That she does not come with the house. The buyers don't want tenants. They don't want your old paint.
And
they don't want your mom.
I'm wondering if we're onto something, right? Like there could be some kind of a deal with that, right? Where you actually sell property and the owner sells the. You can have this house, right? But I'm staying here, right? And I've never met you before. You know, you're going to help me out. I can help you out as much as I can. Sure, I can walk the dog for a little while, right?
You know, so, well, I'll tell you something. I mean, it's a real concern. It's a real concern.
Right.
And to your point, the question is, you know, where would mom? You know, mom has to be going somewhere.
Yeah.
And by the way, mom has to be on board with the transaction because everybody has to sign off on this deal to kind of make this thing work because that's what's going to pull this thing together. A long time ago, a little side story here, kind of relates to what we're talking about.
I love side
So,
stories.
long time ago, for many of you who don't know this, I have what would only be described as an unhealthy obsession with Key West, Florida. Love Key West, Florida. Been going for a million years.
I don't know
Love
about
it down
I
there.
mean, I don't know if you're unhealthy. I wouldn't
All
say
right,
it's
that's fine.
unhealthy.
That's
I
good.
think
That's all right.
I would describe it as enthusiastic. I find it's heartwarming to me. I
All
find it as enthusiastic. You are like, I've been to Key West one time. Because I'm you know, lifelong friends with you. I feel a connection to Key West,
right,
even
well-
more than my one trip.
All right, so I love it. So when I was years ago, and I think I was probably still in law school, and I had just taken the conveyancing class, and they talked all about life estate deeds and what you can do with a life estate deed and all this other stuff. There was a woman who owned what could only be described as a magical property down in Key West, Florida. It was a place called Nancy's Secret Garden, and it was an acre of property, old growth forest, you know, 75-foot banyan trees, and you access the property from 2 locations. And she ran the property, and inside the property, she had parrots and all these animals that she would show to people when they came in.
Key West.
And it was absolutely
postcard.
It was postcard Key West. And then she would collect donations. Like you'd roll up to the entrance, which is on this side street, and you'd go in and you'd put like a $10 bill in a plastic jug. And these are donations for maintaining the garden, right?
Yep.
And it was a tourist. It was on the books as a legitimate tourist stop. You go to Key West, stop in and see Nancy's Secret Garden. So of course, in very similar fashion as to all the situations that we see here, at some point, Nancy was like, look, the donations aren't keeping up with owning the property, okay? And I want to continue to do the work that I do, the conservation work and the educational programs and all this stuff, but I owe the town a pile of dough in back taxes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, they do that, right?
And I don't know what to do.
Municipalities.
And when I say like this is, you know, a property that if you're a developer and you're looking at this property, you're like,
Yeah.
it's an acre. How many acre parcels with this much like growth and development exist? You know, very few,
You
if
need
any,
you need
right?
a floor jack to get your chin off the ground.
I mean,
like-
it was unbelievable. So I'm reading the article, and I'm sitting here because I read the Key West newspaper all the
doesn't?
time,
Yeah,
right?
who doesn't?
So I'm reading
here.
about Nancy's in a tough spot, right? And so the thought occurred to me, right? I have a few real estate regrets in my life, and this is one of them, right? But the thought occurred to me. I said, you know what? Why don't I do this? Why don't I call Nancy and say, hey, Nancy,
This is Jay.
I'm Jay. We never met. You couldn't pick me out of a lineup, but I would like to introduce myself and introduce a solution to you, all right? And my solution and my suggestion is this, all right? You owe back taxes. I think the amount was ballpark. Let's call it 200 grand. So you owe back taxes the amount of $200,000. I will write you a check. I'm going to get a loan. I'll get some financing, right?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm going to write you a check for $200,000, and you are going to sign over to me your house,
Said
your
property.
property, right? And then in the garden,
Yeah.
right? You're transferred over to me, and you can live there I'll give you a life estate in the property. You can live there for the rest of your life, right? You know, and of course, to your point, right? Knowing my luck, Nancy goes to she's 117, right? God bless her,
Yeah.
right? But I said, look, you can stay there, and then from that point forward, you know, whatever the property taxes are, that's fine. You know, we'll pick them up, and
take
we'll
care of
figure
it,
something
yeah.
out. But and you can do your thing, right? Because I'm not in any position right now. My kids are really young. I'm trying to look down the road into the future, right? And I thought this was a great idea, and I never pulled the trigger on it because I thought to myself, it's just crazy enough that someone's going to be like, hang up on that lunatic, right?
Yeah.
So I never did it. Didn't even give it a second thought, right? So the
Because you
next
essentially would have stole that property for $200,000.
No. There's math. There's all kinds of math that goes into seeing what Nancy's life estate in the property is worth, right? And she goes the distance at 117. She gets a good long run out of it. That's worth real money.
That's real money.
And it solves her problem, which is I want to be here. I want to do my programming. I want to keep the garden intact. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. It's not going to become Jay's secret garden.
I need a partner that lives in Massachusetts.
That's right. I need somebody who's not going to show up ever. Once a year. Once a year I got to put up with this guy, right? Once a year, right? Once a year I'm in the bathroom brushing my teeth, and she's like, oh, it's that time of the year. You again? One weekend, Nancy. I'll be back.
Right, yeah.
Great. What's for breakfast, Nancy? Right? Heading out to the garden. But like I said, place should be. So I didn't do it. I thought it was just too wacky a scheme, and I just thought people aren't going to buy into this. The next time I cruise on down to good old Key West, Florida, I'm with my sister. I said, you know what we have to do? We got to stop by. We got to see Nancy's secret garden. You are going to just be floored when you see this place. It is unbelievable. And so we go marching right in to see Nancy's secret garden, and I walk straight into an 8-foot stockade fence, almost knocked me on my ass. I'm like, whoa, whoa. Where did the fence come from? Oh, wait a minute. And it connects up with another fence over here, right? Nancy's secret garden had shrunk down to like Nancy's secret,
Nancy's secret
patio,
puddle.
right? Nancy's secret patio. And so, of course, get chit-chatting. What happened? Well, we had to come up with the tax money, and we didn't know how we were going to handle it. And all of our neighbors around us were so fortunate that they were willing to basically carve up the garden and move their fences back. And so gonzo, right? So, a fraction of what it used to be, and she's still down there doing her work, God bless her, still doing her educational programs. But what happened was those folks around her, her neighbors around her, basically said, yeah, we'll all kick in 50. Sure, you owe 200. We'll kick in 50 to expand my footprint, and then I don't know, then from there it's just So these deed with life estates, not that you have to buy somebody's garden, but they can do a lot of good with the right intentions and in the right hands. But you need to remember, you can't undo these things. This is a legitimate obligation that can create some problems, but it can do a lot of good, especially when you do it with a life estate, in addition to avoiding probate, because the property goes to the people that you put on the deed without having to go through any probate hoops.
Your probate
you solve that problem, your heirs get the property, and if you're worried about Medicaid planning, it starts the clock ticking for 5 years. So if you're going to do this 5 years from now, if you file for a Medicaid application, the house does not count as an asset for Medicaid planning purposes. And the house in Natick that you mentioned that you paid $185 for, that's now worth $800, you get the good old step up in basis.
A good old-fashioned step up.
You check a lot of boxes, but you have to really remember, I'm putting somebody on this deed. Do I want to do that? Am I comfortable? Does Nancy want me brushing my teeth in her bathroom? I don't know. It depends. But if it works for everybody and everybody understands what they're getting themselves into, it could be a really viable solution for not a problem, but to accomplish an objective in a way that makes it a win for everybody.
And in many ways, especially when you're dealing with you want this to pass on, or you have an intention of your property, right? Your intention maybe I want my kids to continue to enjoy it.
You want a purpose with your property. You guys talk about it all the time. What's the purpose of the investment?
Yeah. So I want I want to, and maybe it's I want to live here for as long as I can. And we've had so many good memories from this place. Maybe it's a beach place, and that I want this to continue. I want this to be my legacy, right?
Yep.
That's my mother's office is like, I want the house to be my legacy to you guys. So of course you're going to want to set this up where that's what she wants. Like that's their wishes, is they want to be able to visualize what the property is going to look like in the future. And it can be done relatively easily.
Yeah.
But again, it all comes back to, okay, clearly stating your objectives, what we want to see accomplished, and making sure that everybody's on board, and also making sure like who's ultimately in charge. Because remember, the idea if it's we use my mother's, it's her property.
That's right.
She owns it, right? So
that's right.
So me and my brother and my sisters, we don't own this property. So if my mother says, hey, guess what? I do want to leave it to one of you and not to the rest of you, because that's what I want. And here's the reasons, like you said, right? Those are the first questions. Like when they came into your office and they said, I left it to my one son or my one daughter, there's probably reasoning behind that.
Well, that's the first question. Is that what you wanted to do? Well, no. Okay, then let's figure it out.
Yeah,
right?
But maybe the answer is yes.
That's right. Maybe the answer is yes.
Yeah, and then you say, well, here's all the things that can go wrong, and they say, yeah, I get it. I still want him to have it because he or she's had much harder, like they're in a much different financial position than my other kids.
Yep.
So this is what I want to do.
Yep. And then then our suggestion to our client would be, well, here's what you might want to do. You don't have to do this. It might, and we always say this, the players better than us, right? So it might make sense to approach the other kids and just give them a heads up that this was our intention. Now,
by the way.
And here's the thing. Here's the other thing you can do. You can just write it out, right? Yeah. You can leave a note. Dear loved ones, dear kids, dear family, dear whoever it is.
You know, if you're reading a note that says "Dear loved ones," you're not going to want to read. You're not going to want to keep reading.
But I mean, look, I distributed my estate a certain way. I didn't treat everybody equally because I didn't treat you all equally during your life because you all have different needs. You all have different wants. I treated you the way that I made.
I liked some of you more than others.
I treated you the way I thought it made the most sense, giving your, whatever. I mean, moms make it up, right? And you're going to get that. And you're going to be like, you know what? I get it. I get it. And to your point, at the end of the day, it's mom's money, dad's money. They can do whatever they're going to want to do with it. So it's all good. It's all good.
All right.
All right, let's go.
Time to go.
Out to the garden.
We're going out to the patio, right?
Out to the patio.
Yep. to the Marsden patio down there. Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
I mean, that's right. If they put that casino in, they would have carved you up right there.
Oh, they would have diced me up like it was nobody's business.
Right? Because they would have been like, "Hey, we need this like half acre of swampland behind your house. We'll give you, I don't know, $750,000." When you'd be like, "Okay."
I'd be like, just throw it all in the dumpster.
Yeah.
See you later. I grab my guitar, out the door I go. See you later.
Okay. Yep. Right. Where do I need to put my fence? Right here. Oh, you're going to build the fence for me? Okay. Right.
Done
and
done.
That's fine. That's
done
right.
and done.
Actually, could you put a door into that fence just so I can get in the back way? Right. Maybe I can maybe a parking spot for me. Never mind. I'll park right here and just walk in.
A couple patio pavers. We're good. We're good. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy.
Jay's you got a sign on the front here that says Casino yes.
Happy fall, everybody. Happy fall.
All right. We'll see everybody next week.
Have a great week.